Hey guys, so my videos, the purpose is to relate to you guys, to maybe give you guys some advice that you can apply to your life. I'm speaking to you guys. I want it to feel like there's a connection. So I do speak to you guys, but in these videos, I'm also speaking to myself because even though I know these things that I'm talking about, sometimes I get stuck in old ways, or sometimes my thinking gets out of hand, out of control, right? And these videos are good reminders to hopefully you and myself. So, today's message: don't get too high or too low. This is something that I experience. Obviously, everyone goes through highs and lows in life, ups and downs, whether it be from week to week. You might have a bad year, a bad 2 years, a great year, a great 3 years, a good 2 months, then a bad month, and you know what I'm saying? Life comes in waves, right? But it's important to not get too high or too low. And what does that mean? Don't get too high by becoming arrogant, by becoming complacent, by letting, let's say, your successes change you, change your authentic self. Don't lose that authenticity. And don't get too low by making these negative conclusions about yourself, or thinking that you'll be stuck in this feeling forever, right? Because life comes in waves, you know? Something that I've learned is your time comes and it goes. Like sometimes when you're sad, it's just in life, it's your time to be sad. Everyone's sad eventually, you know? These emotions that you're feeling when you're low, everyone's felt, you know? Your situation, there's probably someone else in your situation. And just because you're in it now and you're going through it doesn't mean that that's going to be your whole life forever. So that's what I'm saying. Don't get too low by making these assumptions about yourself, or identifying with it, or putting a limit on yourself based on the current situation that we are in, because it's normal. I like to see it. Life is an ocean, right? And the ocean is uncontrollable. It is somewhat unpredictable, right? And we are a boat in this ocean. And the boat cannot control the water, but it can control itself. It can handle, if it's a good boat, it can handle the waves on the ups and downs. It can ride the ups and downs. It can handle the crashes. It can handle everything in the ocean if it is built well. If this boat is built well, it can handle the ocean. If our brain and the work we put in ourselves, if that comes with good intentions, and if we put the effort into ourselves, we can build up this boat, this brain or identity, you could say, that can handle the ocean, the life, you know? I read in the Bible where it says, if you build your foundation on a rock, on solid land, no matter what happens, that house will still stand because it is on a solid foundation. If you build your house on sand, something weak, something fragile, then when the storm comes, your house will be blown away, or your house will become destroyed, right? So I think this is why it's so important to not get too high or too low. All right, so how do we do this? Because in the moment, trust me, I know, in the moment, it is very hard to not feel these, to not want to grasp onto these thoughts, right? So, in another video, I talked about detaching from your thoughts. I'll link it. But something else I want to say in this video is in times of maybe sadness, or just on the wave, you're going down. It is very important to not make conclusions about yourself, conclusions about your situation. Because this is really dangerous, because in this state, while you're low, you're most likely sad, you're most likely frustrated. So all the thoughts that you will be getting are not conducive to living a good life, because most of these thoughts, you could say, are negative, right? And it's very easy for us that when we feel low, we make these emotional thoughts, right? Because these thoughts that come to us when we're in a bad state of mind are kind of arbitrary, meaning they're random. They're influenced from a lot of people. They come very fast, and they come very fast at us while we're in a fragile state. So I think, like our shield is down, right? So I think it's very important to keep that shield up and be conscious, and to just reject any conclusions that you make about yourself while you're riding the wave down. And I'm not saying that once you understand this that these negative thoughts are going to go away. The thoughts are still there, but it's how you react to these thoughts. Something that I have talked about before, right? And something I do to kind of lessen you know, making sure that my wave in life is not going straight down. Maybe the wave goes like this, if you know what I'm saying. What I do to kind of not let myself get too low to begin with is to not allow your happiness and the value you have about yourself and your joy and your peace to not kind of attach those things to things that are outside of your control, right? So don't base your happiness off of how other people treat you, or your value off of how other people treat you. Don't let your joy, same thing, based off of other people treat you. Don't let your value come from the belongings you have. Don't let your happiness come from you guys know what I'm trying to say. We need to be in control of our peace, of our joy, of our happiness comes from. And obviously, family members. Let's say we get our happiness from family members. Obviously, they're outside of our control. Worst case scenario, something bad happens to them, and that source of happiness is no longer there. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about just us and the things that we choose to value. We really need to look at them and ask ourselves, does this truly give me value? Do I truly feel fulfilled based off these things? Is this happiness that I get out of my control? And it's kind of like gambling your peace of mind, gambling your happiness when you put it into things outside of yourself. That is what I'm trying to say. So the more we can minimize that and be in control of our peace and fortify our minds, that's how we get the low parts of the waves to not be too bad. We help ourselves out. And something that also helps me get through the highs and lows of life is having a routine, having things that you do every day, having purposeful action in your life that keeps you on the right track. That keeps, when life is going like this, on the things you can't control, the actions that you take have to be like this, or let's say like this. Just slowly, gradual, consistent effort and actions that you put into yourself that eventually will pay off, that feel good in the moment because you are doing good for yourself. No matter how bad your situation is. Let's say working out, for instance. No matter what happens in your life, if you stay disciplined with working out, that kind of keeps you level-headed. Also, not comparing yourself, because once you compare yourself in an emotional way, I also talked about this in another video, comparing yourself emotionally to other people by keeping your emotions in your comparison, it is very dangerous, because you get discouraged. You often think less of yourself because someone who is doing, let's say art, let's say you're comparing art. My phone's tripping. Anyways, let's say you want to compare art, right? You do art and you're comparing yourself to this person on Instagram, and they're way better than you. A lot of people get discouraged from this. They're like, oh, I can never be as good as this person, or oh, my shading sucks, or oh, my lines suck, I'm not as creative. Which is a dangerous way to look at things. what we should be doing is looking at it analytically, like, okay, how are they shading that makes their art better than mine? What techniques are they using? You guys see what I'm saying? When you look at it from an analytical perspective. And I think when you compare yourself a lot, that's what gets you on those lows. That's what gets you sad, you know? That's a weak boat. There's leaks. There's water that can get through the cracks of your boat if you compare yourself in a bad way. So I just want to make this video because, you know, I'm not saying that I've been on a big low, but I've gone a little off track on my routine, and it makes me feel the way. You know, I get frustrated and I get a little, not discouraged, but I just get a little meh. You know, things become a little bland when I avoid the things that I have to do, right? So this is a video for you and for me. That's why I said in the beginning of the video, I'm talking to you, but I'm also talking to me, right? So this is just something that's been on my mind. So don't get too high and don't get too low, right? Life comes in waves, ups and downs. Remember the ocean analogy. How life is an ocean and you are the boat. Your mind is the boat, right? So if you guys enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, comment, share, do all that. I appreciate you if you made it to the end of this video. Thank you.